Welcome to the Good News Naija podcast, where we celebrate stories of Nigerians who are doing extraordinary things and making global waves. My name is Desmond Ebuwa Ikunwe. Today we've got Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour. We speak a lot about legacy. We speak about building. We speak about Nigeria, the love for Nigeria, collective love for Nigeria. And I know you'd enjoy this podcast. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Good to be here.
So, I don't know if you checked your LinkedIn. When last did you check your LinkedIn?
I am not on LinkedIn. Just be honest.
So you see me. So if you check, you see somebody called Desmond Ebuwa lurking across your LinkedIn. Because I was trying to do a lot of research about stuff that you've been involved in, the things that you've done. Because a lot of us young people, we see the now. And now when we see you talk about how you want to change Lagos, how you want to impact Nigeria, we're very fixated on the now and not checking the journey from 20 years ago when perhaps you were in uni and all of that and trying to get your first job. So I want to ask, because according to your LinkedIn, your first job was for 10 months in 2004 in the UK. How important was that first experience in building the man you become?
I think it was important in the sense of a career, right? In the sense of, being an architect, you actually have to work a certain amount of time before you get your master's. And after you get your master's, you're supposed to work for a certain amount of time to get registered as an architect, right? And do some work, whether be it in a partnership with an architect that's already registered, that's after your master's. So it was part of the process. So architecture is like a long 7-year process to become an architect. And that's part of it. I think it was a good thing to be able to put to practice because architecture is practice, right? The practice of architecture. Be able to practice everything you learned in school, theories, and to actually see the realities, how that differs from what you see in school. In school, you're being taught how to do groundbreaking, highly beautiful, intelligent design. But then reality might not really allow for that. You're limited by the client's budget. You're limited by client approvals and client authorities, right? So it was good to take that knowledge and bring it to the real world and try to find and understand how it actually works in reality. And just the discipline of it as well was good. It was good to be in that kind of situation and with other professionals. Yeah.
Okay. So you come from a very powerful family.
Powerful.
Legacy family.
Legacy, yeah. I would say legacy. I would say powerful.
Legacy family. How did that shape your ambition? Because sometimes, how did that shape your ambition first off?
I won't even say it started from ambition. I think that when a group of people have a history that they've managed, because it's not easy to continue to stay relevant for 200 plus 300 years, in every generation, you're still maintaining some level of relevance. There is now something to pass on because there's now a brand. Whether it's deliberately curated or not, there's some form of something that your name stands for. And I think in that, there are values. So I won't say it's ambition, I would say it's values. Values that are passed on that says that when the enemy is at the gate, you should be one of the first people to go and meet the enemy at the gate and protect your people. And that can be seen in so many different ways. And you don't really realize it until you look back. Let me give you some examples. For instance, my grandfather's younger brother was in college. And he happened to read about what the Germans did in Namibia, Shark Island. That was the first place where they started to practice the things that they then used for the concentration camps. And they did that against the Herero people, right? And at this time, he was fighting in Europe and he was winning. Hitler was, moving on the victorious march kind of thing. And his realization was, once Hitler is done with Europe, he's going to turn his sights to Africa. And if Germany had done this to people like so many years ago, can you imagine what they'll do now? If he's doing this to his own Oyinbo people, what will he do to Africans? And you know how racist the whole Nazi thing was. So he was one of the first people to register to join the Royal Air Force. He literally died at 25, bombing Nuremberg. There was a pilot, Nigerian Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, Nigerian fighter pilot, right, in the RAF. That's one. I looked at, for instance, the work that my sister does in domestic violence response in Lagos State. We were all in the same house when it started, because from NYC, she joined the Lagos State Attorney General's office. And in the process of experiencing so much violence perpetrated against women, she started this thing like as a small project that wants to focus on abuse, not just of women, of children, and because it was something that affected her deeply. She'll come back home, she'll be wailing, she'll be crying. My parents would talk to her, my parents would, encourage her. It was very traumatic for her because we grew up in a very sheltered, very loving environment. So it's very difficult to understand why people are perpetrating that kind of violence. I've never seen my father hit my mother. If my father is upset about something, he will get up and walk away, right? That's what I know. So when you hear that somebody is tying somebody up in a bathroom for days and beating and doing all those things, it's traumatic. But she, with grit, she stood in there, and they've made it something that's quite special, right? They've made it quite special, and the quality of good news I hear from that agency is something. And then the last example I'll give is genetic modified foods. People are talking about that now, GMO this, GMO that. But we started on that journey in 2014, 2015, because my wife is a geneticist. And then she was at Oxford. And I think at the time we're dating and we're trying to decide where will our base be. And finished from MIT, she was at Oxford there. It was, why are you in Nigeria? You should be in England, America, I get a job very easily. What are you doing?
I'd ask that question too.
But me, I've always, that's another thing. It's like, okay, we're sending you there to come back here and make good of what this place is. So all my siblings are here. All of us went to school abroad, but we're all back here. There's nobody that has jackpot or whatever. We were reverse jackpot at the time. Yeah, so the genetic modified foods. So there was a whole idea where she was like, where's our base going to be? And she'll always be pushing, okay, this is what Nigeria is feeling. Look, your country is about to pass this policy that's going to affect you people like this, like this, like this. And for the first time, I had no rebuttal. And I remember I got really depressed. I got depressed because I could see what this is going to lead to for generations that are coming. And I remember I went to see my father and I noticed that there was something off for me, and he was like, what's wrong? Really tried to poke together. And I told him about it. I said, so if it's affecting you like this, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? He literally looked at me, what are you going to do about it? And I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, first of all, you need to educate the people, You should, if something affects you this deeply, you should do something about it. You don't just complain and just carry on. You do something about it. And next day, literally arranged for editors of newspapers to come, and those were my first interviews, and then started debates. Went back and forth with the Minister of Agriculture at the time, Akumi Additional, debated the NABDA guy, MBMA, led a 2,000-man march in the Senate. Literally, that was how I then got into politics and ran for local government chairman. It was a split-second decision in the sense that we led a 2,000. I and other leaders at the time led a 2,000-man march on the Senate, and 3 senators came out to address us, and all they kept saying was, we're two-time governors, we're this, we're that. They showed no understanding of the issue, no care or empathy in my mind. And I just thought, we need people that have more love and more empathy for their people making decisions that affect our lives and our destinies. And that's why I came back and I got into politics. I joined Kowa Party and I ran for local government chairman. That's literally the trajectory. But all those examples are to show a consistency that has been passed down. Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour in 1800 was one of the people that ensured that we got Gbadebo free in England, right? So I can just give you examples. So it's not about ambition. It's about the values that are put in you, a hate for injustice, a desire for fairness, a desire to see your people great. And understand that greatness is not just about the size of your wallet or your bank account or the buildings you own, but the quality of lives of your people. That's the boast. My people are doing good. It's like when I see a familiar thing when I listen to the Sheikh of UAE speak. His pride is not in his personal assets, it's what he's done for his people. That's what gives him that thing. And that's why I want to see more in leadership. And I feel that my father probably got it from his father, who got it from his father. So yeah, that's a short answer to your question.
No, but then me thinking about this and these values and your need to fight injustice, do you ever feel like you should have gone into law? Like
yes. No, seriously, I think about it all the time because that's really if you talk about career legacy, it's law, right? I've had the second judge ever in Nigeria, then George, my grandfather was a judge, my uncle was Supreme Court Justice. I'm also very creative. I like creativity. I used to write poetry. I used to paint. I was fantastic in science. That's why I could easily grasp genetics in terms of GMOs and stuff. My favorite subject was chemistry and biology, then maths. But I also used to paint. So there's a problem. So architecture sort of married that science and art because there's technicality of it and the rigidity of it, but then also there's the beauty and creativity of it. So, but but being in a home that was people raised by lawyers, and it was always an environment that allowed for you to be listened to, for you to have your ideas, be able to express your ideas, and then have people respond. There was always those conversations in the house. We'll debate about things. Like I remember my father would, every night, literally, we'll read our daily bread, and then everybody will talk about the topic. And not just talk about holy Ada. No. Like somebody will say, we'll talk about destiny. And then people start questioning destiny, the concept, and going back and forth and back and forth. So it was a lot of refining in terms of thinking and thought processes and stuff. Yeah.
Speaking about ideas, who are some of the people that have shaped your worldview as a person?
That's a very beautiful question.
When you think about it.
I think that Herbert Macaulay is one.
Why?
Because this was a silver spoon kid. His grandfather was Ajayi Crowther. He was earning enough. He was a Renaissance man in the sense that he was an architect, he was a surveyor, he was so many things. He was a spiritualist, he was so many things, he was a politician. He could have easily lived a life of comfort and just chose to be about himself. In my opinion, I'm sure there's always something to say about politicians, but he took on the issues of the people, and he fought for their lands. He went to England to do that. I mean, he was one of the first people that was protesting, and then he was chained to a pole. I mean, there's so much, right? So there's that. In terms of when you have some level of privilege, you should use it for the betterment of your people. So I like that values. That's a lesson I take from his life. I have a lot of love and respect for Thomas Sankara as well. young man. Again, it was about his people, about a love and a quest for the greatness of his people. And that's a value that those are people that come to mind. Obafemi Awolowo as well, Chief Obafemi Awolowo. I love how innovative and creative he was, in pushing again for the betterment of his people. Education, ensuring that education was easily accessible by his people, and really pushed the development of his people forward. Malcolm X. I believe I really like Malcolm X. I like Malcolm X in the sense that he was the other half of Martin Luther King. You know, when you go at an issue, there's always the good cop, bad cop kind of thing. And because of Martin Luther King's initial idea about protesting and trying to get your rights before he changed later on, which he did, Malcolm X was cast as that bad guy that was about, eye for an eye. And sometimes that's necessary. By
Yes,
any means
I was going to
necessary.
talk about that when I was in uni. It was one of those conversations that we always had.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm a student of history.
Okay.
That would always like Malcolm X. There were people who had opposing opinions
course.
about his
Yes.
ideologies, but yeah.
Yeah, because the African man is always expected to be assistant Jesus. He's always expected to forgive and forget. He's always expected to just not even talk about any of the pain that he has been through. And I promise you, if the European, the Caucasian, experience a tenth of what the African has experienced in this world, he will go after all of you and wipe you out. He will wipe you out with atomic bombs. He will bomb you out of the histories. He will rewrite you. He will write you out of the histories. So you look at what has happened. I mean, look at what happened when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. Look at how America responded with an atomic bomb. Look at what is going on in Gaza now. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. Are those forgiving people? But the black man is always expected to, oh yes, love. We'll protest by not eating food. No. And it's unfortunate because there was a time when the black man was king. And we have a great history all the way from Kush, Kemet, coming to Timbuktu, coming to the Songhai Empire, right? Our history is one of greatness. And I feel that Malcolm X embodied that to an extent. Love is important, but love is always abused. Power recognizes power, right? Power is what power is, and power recognizes power. And the thing is, when you achieve some kind of freedom from doing this, from appealing to the good side of power, you never really are free. Because there are always strings attached. I mean, look at the South African. Till today, 70% of the land is owned by the people that colonized them. Resources under the ground are owned by them. Look at all of Francophone Africa before these young men now did their coup. Everything under the earth is owned by France. I mean, France was buying uranium for like a tenth or some crazy fraction of what the price is on the global market. Today now, I believe it's Burkina Faso is one of the fastest growing countries in the world, apparently, because now they're generating so much more income from the sale of their uranium, right? So, and then you look at people that actually fought for their independence, like the British that went to America and colonized it when they fought the British, right? So now we have America, we have England. England cannot claim to be controlling America, right? So that's why Malcolm X, is somebody that I also value his perspective on the world. A number of others.
So
Those are the ones that come to
I
me.
love that because hearing you, I'm very inspired because you have like a truly formed idea of what the potential of the African person, of the Nigerian.
Yes.
And do you think that because we do not have history in our curriculum as Nigerians, it affects us as a people? Because even some of the stories I'm taken back to when I was in uni to be like, oh my God, this was what, because I dealt with it majorly as theory, as against application and practice to how we live our daily lives. Do you think that the lack of that application of history in our personal lives and us knowing the extent of greatness that was achievable by a lot of people that came before us holds us back as a people?
That's a beautiful question. 100%. 100%. In fact, 1,000%. It hurts. It hurts. Like when because now I'm a public figure to an extent, or whatever they call it, I cannot just tweet anyhow. I cannot just tweet my feelings. Sometimes I just want to scream at people. Like, you people are descendants of greatness. Why are we being so petty, fighting tribalistic things that have no basis? You have an Oba of Benin will come and talk about the history of the Empire of Benin and Lagos. The Oba of Lagos will come and say, yes, my ancestors came from Benin. But people will just be rewriting history for political reasons. I remember the last time this happened, I just said, I'm not going to argue this back and forth. I just gave an instance of something that happened. There was an Oba of Lagos called Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, and he fell out of favor with the Akarigbere class, the ruling king, the kingmakers and his chiefs in council. What did they do? They reported him to the Oba of Benin. The Oba of Benin sent him a skull and a sword to choose. The skull means commit suicide and die and the story is over, or choose the sword and we go to war. The guy committed suicide and died. This is documented, it's not controversial history. It is basic history of Lagos. It is not questioned. Do you know that when I put that up, people are now talking about, I'm taking the side of, Oga, I just told you something that happened, right? And the shock factor was how many people did not even know this history. Like, I did not argue with you. I just told you, this happened. You put 2 and 2 together, right? Mm-hmm. Put 2 and 2 together. But you see, because we don't have, and I believe it's deliberate. I believe that the impoverishment of the Nigerian is deliberate, not just of the pocket, of the mind. Because when you can divide and rule people, it's a lot easier to control them. But the understanding of history is one that programs your people to an idea and vision of themselves that is larger than what they currently are, in the hope of achieving greatness. You look at the way the Americans tell their history. They will tell you, they will gloss over all the bad parts. Africans came here based on immigration for labor. Mm-hmm. And they were happy when they came here. They're not telling how they were raping people, having breeding farms, and all. They don't tell that. You have to find that information yourself. But as a Nigerian, what is the Nigerian dream? What is the greatness you want your people to aspire to? What is the greatness you want them to know that they're from? We are much older than Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa. We are way older. We've had civilizations. We've built things, right? It's just when the British came, they now started drawing lines and say, okay, you are Nigerian. You are Yoruba. you. We've been interacting. We've been doing things. We have to explore that history and look at that history in the broader sense of the African identity. And then look at it in the broader sense of the Black identity. Because guess what? When all of us, all those people on Twitter, they're insulting themselves, when they're all in England and America, they're not Black men. They're no more Igbo or you, they're Black men. Because when you face a challenge that is bigger than that identity, you have to create another identity, right? So you are black men. But unfortunately, we keep bickering at this primordial tribal level, and greatness never comes from that. You know, that's interfighting and looking into yourself. They call it some conservatism, morality. It leads to poverty. It leads to poverty of the mind. It leads to poverty of just resources, because the economy, innovation, ideas about interlinking, exploring. Britain did not say, oh, we have this great empire, so we're going to stay on our island and we're going to, remember the good old days when the Plantagenet dynasty and the Tudor dynasty did this and that. No. As small as they are, they got on a ship and went around colonizing places and forming empire, to the point where it was said that the sun never set on the British Empire. Look at the French as well, right? So, yes, you must hold on to your culture, appreciate it. But you see, your culture grows when your activity grows. There are people learning Chinese now in University of Lagos. There are people learning Chinese in England. There are people learning Chinese in America. Why? Because the Chinese are doing things that they are pushing innovation. Why am I speaking English today? Why? No, people make fun of me that I don't speak Yoruba or I don't speak Yoruba well enough. But why the fuck, am I speaking English today? Because some people on a tiny island had big dreams and they moved and conquered the world. Right? Mm-hmm. They conquered all your kings that you hold there and they colonized you. Enslaved or bought you slaves that you sold to them. Whatever it is, they made impact on the world. That's why today we are speaking this language. They don't need to tell you to speak the language. You have just realized that, in this creation of theirs, there's so many of us, the one common language we can all speak is this English. So it's in our interest to do that. If China continues the way they are going, people are going to start speaking Chinese. Right? So it's about, what are you adding to the world? What mark are you leaving on the world? What level of innovation are you bringing to the world? Right? And then you don't need to tell people your culture, it will go. There was a time where everybody was wearing blue jeans, Levi jeans, white t-shirt. Hey, America, they didn't tell you to do it. Wear Timberlands. I don't know how old you are. I'm 41, right? There was a time where people were wearing Timberlands in this country.
I remember it.
Timberland boots, right? Timberland boots are for the dead of winter. Who were wearing Timberland boots in the heat of Lagos? Again, what you are selling. So, like, for instance, now you look at what's going on with our music. You see Rema, Burna Boy, Wizkid, and so many people, P-Square, Flavor, they're going around doing tours, they're being played on different stations. As I was coming here, I read that 50 Cent recently paid Favour like $1 billion to use his song on one of the movies or shows that he's doing, right? All that is your culture going out. People are embracing, people are singing it. That's it. You must add to the world. You cannot just be, add to the world. And that interaction. 50 Cent, an African American, his ancestors were probably enslaved, kidnapped, and captured and sent there, is now interacting back with a Flavor and making a show that Chinese and Koreans are going to be watching. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm really blown by that. I really love it. So for me, when you were listing a number of the people that have shaped your worldview, I love that you now mentioned music, people, and how the potential of that for the world, how the world is engaging with Nigerian music, engaging with Nigerian films, in the case of, like, say, Black Book, that had a global, that had global success. Mm-hmm. So who are some of the young people that you see, that you're inspired by their drive, that you're inspired by their push for better?
Oh, wow, there are a lot of them. Where am I going to start? I love what Files is doing. I love that, he doesn't shy away from standing for the people. All the guys that were part of the NSAS movement, Mr. Macaroni, Renu, people that, I mean, it's consistent, bro. It's consistent. People, as you ask that question, first people that came to my mind were people that stood for instance. Because it's about, they could be comfortable. At least founders they've made a couple of billion. They could be comfortable. They don't have to do this, but they come and stand because that privilege allows you to stand. You don't need to beg for a job. If you're angry with me, too bad. I'm okay. I'm comfortable. You cannot stop me from eating. By God's grace, you cannot steal my money. I'm okay. So if you have that privilege, use it. Unlike somebody that's working in the civil service, right? They cannot just come out and protest. They cannot just come out and shout. Or someone that's looking for how they're going to eat tomorrow. Yes, they're angry and they will come out. Maybe they'll come out, but they might not be able to sustain it. But you that can, come out, stand for your people. And that's what's so impressive about those young people. There's so many people. Some are not as popular. There's a young man that is doing amazing stuff with housing and Jeremy Feludu. I don't remember his name, but he's created a means of people paying on a daily basis for their accommodation at a subsidized rate, because the way people make money in Nigeria is not. You should not be paying yearly rent. It's ridiculous. So he's created a model, and I found that very inspiring. I mean, and so many others.
So I hear that, but then a question I really wanted to ask, I forgot because I was supposed to ask it earlier, is why do you think Nigerians have a problem? Not a problem, or criticize people that come from privilege?
I don't think it's a Nigerian thing. I think it's a human thing. I also think that privilege is abused, right? I don't think people do the right thing with it. So you find that abroad, you see somebody that comes from a wealthy family, has this charity, and they're sort of living this. There's a creed by which they live, so they're impacting people. The way you see how, I want to say Bill Gates, but obviously there's controversy around some of the things that he does. But you use that wealth or privilege for the upliftment and betterment of your people. And that way, it's not something that will be seen negatively. But then you find that there are a lot of people, I don't want to say young people, but people in general, that their wealth is about, oh, look at my nice car. Oh, look at this clothes I'm wearing. Oh, look at this expensive shoe. Oh, it's like they still have stuff to prove. At a certain point, money or privilege or whatever it is should have settled to the point where you no longer have anything to prove to anybody, right? And you have more focus on the higher things like love, like impact, like empathy, like solving problems, because that's really what gives meaning to life. There's only so many women you can be with. There's only so many cars you can drive. Only so many houses you can have, and that brings us to another problem, where people that have not seen money are now put in government positions and they're just accumulating. There's no end to it, right? Because subconsciously there's a fear of going back to poverty. So they want to buy and buy just so they feel they can never be poor again, or whatever that is. I don't fully understand, but contentment is king. But I feel like our elite of Nigeria has been a real letdown. They've been very selfish, and there's a lot of people that just accumulate money for the benefit of themselves and their family. So I understand why a lot of Nigerians that don't understand why they're poor and don't understand why they have to be suffering like this are looking at you with all of these things, and what are you doing with it? You're just showing off. Of course there's going to be negativity. Even in Yoruba culture, when you buy a new house, you wash it, right? You invite your friends, you eat.
That's been transported across every culture.
Every culture, yeah. The idea is so that you reduce that bad belly thing. Like, come, celebrate this thing with me. I'm going to use my money to take care of you while you're here. right? So you are also part of it, right? It's a cultural way of preventing that kind of negativity and animosity. But when people just use their wealth to push people away and create this class differentiation and, are unrelatable and just showing off without any care to what is around them and what other people are dealing with, it will lead to problems like that.
Okay, fantastic. So,
And also, there has to be some people in society that those who transfer their anger on. Because there's a lot of anger. People are hungry, people are suffering. And you're just moving and just... I just wish they transferred the aggression to the people that are failing them, though.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
So, how, in all of this, how do you... So, it's September. We're in September. We're about to get into October. It's the season where a lot of Nigerians move to... I have a few friends who moved to the UK very recently. And that usually comes from a place of wanting better for themselves.
Of course.
One. But then again, it's just a place of, Nigeria is not helping me, so why not move? So how do we, in your opinion, how do we as Nigerians, because now I even find it hard to convince a lot of my friends, because I tell my friends that I think my destiny is here, that I have a great passion for fixing certain things in the media and film in Nigeria. But a lot of my friends are like, I think it's time for me to move.
Yeah.
Because they've lost that love for Nigeria.
Of course.
So how do we come back to a place where, beyond all this conversation, so everybody who's listened to this conversation, where we have true love and then we find that love for Nigeria? Or is it impossible to love Nigeria?
This is the hardest question you've asked me. It's hard because it's a dilemma that I'm dealing with myself. When I moved back in 2009. I believe at the time it was still around that. Leading up to that, Obasanjo was president. We had fantastic ministers. If you look at the numbers from our economic forecast and kind of things we're doing, Nigeria was on the up, right? There was a lot of opportunity. All my friends moved back, all of them. And these were people that were at Harvard, Yale, they moved back because they felt they were missing out. Now, if I was in the States now, knowing everything going on in Nigeria now, would I move back? I don't know. I doubt it, honestly. Seriously doubt it. I think that, and I cannot convince somebody to stay in a nation that is frittering away the destinies of its people right now. I mean, you know as a government that people are enduring significant poverty, and your priority is to buy a jet. So it's quite understandable that a number of people are giving up on Nigeria. But I do feel that regardless of if people are living abroad or moving abroad, the thing we should be focused on is building a strong diaspora network, putting together platforms that allows for diaspora to actively still be involved in Nigeria. I think diaspora voting is one of those. It would actually create a stronger tie and allow for people to also feel that they should invest in their country, especially when you consider that how much money comes into Nigeria from the diaspora. Being able to vote and have a say in the way things are done in the country would also make them have that stakeholder feel. Obviously, to achieve that, you must have a credible electoral process, which similarly is not quite obtainable in Nigeria at the moment. But there's that. And also doing more to build our narrative and our story, especially through history. Understanding history, not just the controversial things. When people think history in Nigeria, think Biafra War, they think war, independence. Nigeria is older than, well, not Nigeria, but the peoples of Nigeria, the empires, the communities, the stories are older than that. And to give us that holistic sense of purpose, I think that's where storytelling and narrative building comes in for us as a people. Another thing is also starting to create a means by which all of the people that were forcefully taken out of our homeland, I'm talking about the true enslavement, kidnapping, human trafficking, people that are Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Colombian, Asian, African-American, try and create ties to bring them back in. You achieve several things with that. One, you achieve expertise coming back into the country. You also achieve a certain level of funding that can come back into the country, because now we're limiting our source of international funds solely to Nigerians that have left the country. But the African American buying power is in the trillions of dollars. Imagine if, and most of them will tell you that when they do their genetic test, they are Nigerian. But those are a people that are lost to us. Even Diaspora Affairs, the one that's handled by Abike Dabiri, I believe, the focus solely is on people that identify as Nigerians. Mm-hmm. But the country has not really sat down to think, we were human trafficking, kidnapping and enslaving millions of human beings from this geographical expression that is what is today called Nigeria. I mean, people don't realize how close this thing is to them. And I challenge anybody to go and do a genetic test, right? So me or any of those things. They now look for relatives around the world. You'll be seeing cousins that have your same genetic marker in Texas that you've never met, that you don't know. That's how endemic, that's how close it was to so many people. There's this fallacy where it's like, they sold slaves. Nobody is born a slave. People were kidnapped. Even the Alaafin of Oyo, his son was kidnapped and sold, ended up somewhere in the Americas, but, cream rises to the top, became one of the leaders of the army and started fighting for the freedom of enslaved people. That's how it was. It's for the king of the Oyo Empire's own child to be kidnapped. People were kidnapping their friends, kidnapping their children's friends, and selling them. So there's not been that understanding of that narrative, because you must be able to understand the reality of that narrative, understand the impact of people like Madame Tinubu and how she was selling people and how she was now banned to Abeokuta because of it, and to now have a reconciliation. Because imagine if West Africa, because most of these people left from West Africa, were taken away from their homeland from West Africa. Imagine if there was a real healing. Like Ghana has started doing it. And the amount of income that flows into Ghana from that is significant. Now imagine if Nigeria started doing that, tapped into that, allow people to start to feel like that is our homeland. Should we have a house in our homeland? Should we have business in our homeland? Imagine if we could tap into that. Can you imagine the kind of resources that will come into this country? You will not be needing to be borrowing dollars to stabilize your currency from the World Bank, which only sets you up for the next amount of money you need to borrow, and your currency is constantly in a nosedive, right? So it's that kind of thinking that I feel. Until our country starts to stabilize itself again, where we have leaders that have purpose, that are outside of themselves, their family and their cronies, actual leaders that care about the success of their people, and that's their primary objective, I cannot tell anybody not to move.
So two more questions. How do the young people get in? Because again, we there's been like a lot of organizations that have pushed for young people to be engaged in politics, yes, young people to be engaged in governance. How do we attract young people into politics?
It's like this. You invite me, I come and I talk, right? And setting an example and opening doors, engaging as many young people as possible, showing them that there is this other way to engage in politics and demystifying it, right? There's this idea that is this devilish, dark thing of people that are cultists and blah, blah, blah. But trying to, in my actions, my stance, trying to show a different way of doing it, trying to show that a politician can have ideals, a politician can stand for something. You don't have to always jump on the bandwagon of the winner and just, be there for yourself again, your family and your colleagues. You can take a stand for the people. And managing the weight of the hopes and dreams of people that support me. Obviously, not everybody supports me, not everybody likes me, but there's some people that do. And carrying that and being responsible with it and not dashing, because the worst thing that you can do is kindle hope in the people, then snuff it out by your action, right? Because those will not be able to hope again. And when people lose hope, your country starts to die, literally. Literally, and we can talk about this, literally in the sense that we're talking about people moving, right? People are selling all they have, right? So I live in a house with my wife, with my kids. My kids go to a school, right? So part of my income is going and is paying for school. That school is paying salaries to teachers. There's an entire economy, the school bag, the exercise books, the uniform. There's an entire economy with that. But I now decide I'm moving. So I sell everything I have, withdraw my kids from school. That money that I've gotten, guess what I do? I convert it to foreign exchange. That is pressure on your naira, right? These are some of the minute reasons why also your currency, because people have lost hope. That's the literal manifestation of losing hope, right? People are now holding on to money, converting to foreign currency as a store of value, and not investing. They're not taking risk that they normally would do. And this is how a country starts to die, right? When you're losing your skilled people because they're looking for greener pastures. Remember, one of my nieces started school and there were only 2 people in a class that was usually 10, 15 people. There were only 2. What happened? People have run away. People have jackpot, She won't go to say people are running away. They're escaping. They're not just leaving. But yeah. So getting into politics, voter education, voter sensitization, which is what we're trying to do, being consistent as well, and just trying to create as many avenues for us. So with me, is our Lagos movement, is trying to get as many people to be part of that. It's also about, doing our interventions and community engagements consistently throughout the year, not just when it's time for elections.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much. So for me, the final question would now be, what is next for you? Because you've had a very eventful year. You've been very involved with grassroots work, involved with politics and all of that. But what's next for you? What are you very excited? What are the passions you're very excited about?
I'm very excited about a micro health insurance scheme. Getting into as many communities as possible because it's a low-hanging fruit, and I feel that with the difficulties that most Nigerians, Lagosians especially, are facing, every little helps. So there's that I'm very excited about. I'm very excited about, redefining our politics and alliances that are going to come into play, because there's an understanding among the political elite in opposition that everybody needs to come together, right, to be able to face the ruling party. So that's going to create some very dynamic, interesting politics and maneuvers. So that's something I'm looking forward to. And also just building structure, community engagement, constant engagement, especially with the youth, because they are the future and they are the ones with the most to lose. Because when you have somebody in his 80s making decisions on your behalf that you and your children are going to have to pay for when they go and borrow loans, they're halfway on the other side of the next reality. You are going to have to deal with their decisions for the next 20, 30 years. So you should have a say in it. And that's why I encourage people, don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. That's the problem. Once you lose hope, the people that benefit, okay, you see, a politician or a group of people that just want to steal, they actually benefit when, you are disinterested, when you don't have any hope, when you believe that, yes, they will win anyway, so you're not going to bother, it makes for a cheaper election for them. It makes for them to be able to do things as they like and not accountable. They don't have to be accountable because there's nobody to be accountable to. There must be an opposition to be accountable to. When people just give up and throw in the towel, then there's no opposition. And things only get worse and worse and worse. Like cancer, it just continues to spread. So they cannot afford to give up. For those that are here and for those that are working Build Nigeria, people will move back too. Because there was a time during the whole military era, a lot of people went out of the country, right? Obasanjo came in, a lot of people came back to the country. There are very few Nigerians that just want to live abroad for the sake of living abroad. Nobody wants to be staying in cold-ass Canada, right? If we had light, I had a proper education system, had a proper healthcare system, people will choose Nigeria, right? Because that's their first love. So it's about restoring that love and giving them something to love again.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Nice one.
A total mind shift listening to this episode. I hope you were blown away as much as I was when I was having that conversation. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and share. We are the Good News Naija podcast. My name is Desmond Ebuwa Ekunwe.